To pick up this week, we're going to continue with the idea of classes, and we're going to do it here on page 771. This is 13.10, and we're going to talk about overloading constructors. Now, for many of you who have had, Java, for instance, with us, you'll remember the idea of overloading. It is where we have two different functions that have the same name but have a different either return type or have a different list of parameters. So if we had something like a display or a print, and on one of them we had a print that expected to receive an integer value, and on the other print we had a parameter list that included double and string values, those would be called by the compile and the runtime environment based on the list of parameters, or the list of arguments really, that we are passing as parameters to that particular function. So here, and again, this is 771 and 13.10, overloading constructors. What we have is the ability to create multiple different types of constructors based on whatever kind of data it is that we can pass to them, which is a long way around the block of saying, hey, check this out. So here, this is on page 772. Really, this is the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about. Here on line 21 through 25, we have our first constructor. This constructor takes, for inventory item, just a string. So this is our simpler of the two constructors. Here, with constructor number 3, so we've got our default constructor here. My apologies, I did skip that one. On line 14, you can see that it is empty. Here we have our inventory item constructor number 2, which takes a string for the description. Here we have our, can I call it the complex constructor? We take a string for description, we take a double C for cost, and an int u for how many units it is. Now, the constructor that is called all depends on how much data is being passed to it during the time that we call the constructor. So the runtime environment knows, okay, hold on, you are calling a constructor and you are passing no arguments. That means it should use the simple constructor here on line 14. If we pass it 3 arguments, we know that as long as they are a string, a double, and an integer, we know that the constructor being called is this one, number 3. Now, the idea here is that we don't know necessarily how much data we are going to have at the time that we create one of these objects, and it's in your best interest as a developer to have as much flexibility as possible when you are creating how it is that these objects are going to be instantiated. So it is entirely good practice to see an empty constructor and at least one other constructor, something that has the data you are going to pass to it. So just like we can overload any other function in C++, we can also overload the constructor functions here in C++.